right, I'm sharing the screen. I'll go ahead and start. So we've had a step forward in terms of using Remote Lab or making it more usable, because that's my goal here. So what you should see is the first image. This is after correctly building the DVB-S2 encoder module that we've written. And that took some doing because integrating it into the reference design from Analog Devices, it means to use the reference design sort of approach. And it actually is very similar to the approach that you would do for a standalone module. But you have to kind of learn how to modify the Teckle scripts and how to not include the same source over and over again and confuse Vivado. So that is what was going on with the weird failures. And also, as probably the rest of you know, you can wrap the whole thing. Well, you have to use wrapper anyway. That's kind of the way that we do it. But in terms of like presenting the correct values to the ports, the top level ports, you have to make sure that you're translating any non-standard logic or standard logic vector values correctly to the top level. And I thought that just happened, but no, it doesn't. You actually have to make sure that it happens, especially in a reference design like what we're dealing with the ADRV 9371. So I'm just going to walk through, assuming I can with the screen sharing, but I'm going to walk through this. So you should see Vivado opened to the reference design. There's a project at the reference design, and then, oh good, okay. So what I do here is just open the design. This is after the correct building of our custom IP module. So we've built our encoder into the reference design and figured out all the bugs and then got it to work. So what I did is just opened up the block diagram for the reference design. You can see there's lots of different blocks there, and it's really quite a good design. Takes full advantage of the 9371 board. And then I say, okay, let's add a module. And look at that, our module actually shows up in the list. So I didn't have to add sources or anything like that because the add sources is taken care of by the scripts from Sawato and from Analog Devices. So after getting them to meet in the middle and cooperate together, our IP module shows up. Okay, and then what I did is I just ran the connection automation. My expectation, you can see there's like this little block here that didn't exist before, and that's our block. So I just ran the connection automation, and this pop-up shows up, and this is what I expected to see. And pretty much the automation handles the AXI interface. And I'm like, great. So I click OK and zoom in and look at that. So we have, this is the block. And then here it is. I expanded out the AXI interface so you could see all the stuff that it just handled. But back to here, what we haven't done so far is to hook up the things that we've designed. So AXI is handled automatically by the run automation, and then Sawato has provided some advice on how to set it up to where it just does one particular mod code, and that we can now we need to figure out how to connect it up and how to feed it properly. Now we've already run some data all the way through the reference design using the ADI API. So IIO, or industrial input output interface, is really the best bet for handling the chip and handling shipping the data around. Because we're using the 9371, we're using JESD 204B interface, and direct memory access is the way to go. Okay, so what I was hoping to do is have that working, since I'm a raging optimist. I did not get that completely working, but I think that we're really close to using our encoder over the air. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. All of these images are on the Slack in the FPGA channel in a thread, and I'll include them in the weekly report so that people can see that we actually did get our our particular block into the reference design. All right. All right. So that's the progress. I, as always, apologize for not being able to do more. And there's been lots of good advice on Slack. Okay. So go ahead, Swato. I think probably you have plenty to say.
Hi. So yeah, I was looking at the screen. I joined a bit late, but sorry, I was looking at your shared screen. It seems very close to working, I guess. As in, I can probably point to like to how, but I don't know why it didn't recognize the Axie interfaces like it would have maybe hooked up stuff automatically.
Oh,
But yeah, I can.
yeah, I can
Yeah.
answer that. I think there is actually a way to make it do that. There,
Mhm,
there, there may be a way to make it do that, because if you notice, the rest of the reference design does go ahead and automatically hook up AXI interface. Um,
mhm.
but the walkthrough from Analog Devices does warn you that if you have custom IP that you're bringing in, that this is a step that you have to do. So what we've done
Oh,
here is not unusual, but I'm very curious as to maybe we could uh, figure out what the difference is, and also have it just go ahead and hook it up for us.
yeah,
So
because if I recall correctly, the Axilite interface and the the data, the stream one, they run on different clocks. So if like we want the clock to be the data one, so it has less hops and stuff. But and I remember like if we try to hook up the Axilite to, I think the general purpose uh, Axi memory mapped interfaces, the auto something, the auto vivado thingy will say, oh, you need to cross clock domains, and I'm gonna do this, and like it does what it should.
yeah,
Um,
in this case, I did not get that warning at all. So it seems to have
yeah,
recognized it and put it in there correctly. Seems to.
yeah, I
I
can.
mean, we'll
Yeah, I can look at the log. Like the log will say, I recognize this, and this, because like the HDL has like VHDL attributes to say this is a part of this bus and things like that. But I can have a look, yeah. And so other than that, still working on the presentation stuff.
Oh,
Um,
fantastic. I can't wait. I looked through the slides, and I'm really looking forward to it. And everybody, I know everybody here has presented at Ham Expo before. And it's deeply appreciated, because it's a huge
yeah,
contribution to spread the word and to let people know what we're doing. So thank you.
yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
I'll
sure,
give the
and
logs to you. Is there?
yeah,
I'm assuming that's like the same, like the usual Vivado logs is what you can also just look at them, because they're going to be in the account.
yeah. What I'm going to do is actually just like find dash type, star.log, and
Yeah, right.
yeah, yeah, I'm usually like not lazy, but it always works. I don't have to find out where.
Well, I don't know. Paul has informed me over the past couple of years that laziness is a cardinal virtue of programming. So I think I approve of laziness. Just grab
Yeah.
whatever logs if I don't, because I'm slow, because I get interrupted a lot. But like, grab whatever logs to check and see if it's going the way that you expect. Because I did not get any errors. It worked as expected, which was kind of nice. So
Hmm.
yeah, if I don't get them to you in email, then please feel free to just plunder, just rummage
Yeah,
through whatever, you know.
yeah. I'm actually, yeah, I logged in just now. I'm trying to find.
Okay, good. Awesome. All right. So yeah, step forward, and it's yeah, I in theory, like, it's really quite elegant and nice, and it's a big step forward for FPGA and ASIC design to use JESD 204B. But now I'm like, okay, so I just hook it up to I just connect it up and it's going to magically work when I use the ADI API. I'm hoping that that might happen and that I see stuff on the spectrum analyzer. But that's the goal, is to get it over the air as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's um, sometimes like programming the FPGA is done the boot stage. So if you do like the program after, so initialize stuff, program, and then just warm reboot. Sometimes it skips the stage that's where it programs and it just works. Or
Oh,
but
wow. Okay.
like you can bypass some weird PCIe stuff this way. But I think yeah, in this case is a bit different. It might work. It's just a
Okay.
thought, really.
Thanks. Yeah. Like I said, I have a background in making ASICs and FPGA design, but it's really old. So like the old school way of doing things is very different from this.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of crossover. But it's like this is a totally huge, amazing adventure. I'm loving every minute of it, but it does make you feel stupid when you're like,
Yeah,
it can
you
make
get
you feel a little dumb, you know.
you get used to finding ways
Yeah.
that it doesn't work. Like
Yes.
I found 1,000 ways that don't work. So
Yes.
that's it.
Yes. Good thing I love it. It's a blast. All right. Yeah. So yeah. All right. Let's go to Paul. Do you have the floor?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I thought I had a microphone problem, but apparently it's just a test problem. Not too much to report here. The only thing going on with the remote lab is that we're trying to reorganize the disk space usage. Uh, Everybody except Salvatore has cooperated now and almost ready to turn off the VM and set it up for the new system, which I've explained to everybody in the Slack already. The idea is to move large items out of the home volume of the VM so that the VM itself can be small and we can have them all in the cache at the same time. So that's going, no blockers. That's all.
Awesome. Anything from Remote Lab South?
No news there.
Okay.
Seems that they're too busy getting reorganized at the new location.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But like all the remote access through Chubb is working a-okay?
Yes, we're
Oh,
still
good. Okay. So yeah,
online with Chubb.
fantastic. That's really good news. All right. Anshul, you have the floor.
Hi. So I just went through the Slack to understand what has been the progress made. So the things that you described, Michelle, uh, does it include Linux kernel and everything, and how you are interacting with PS and PL? Any
Yeah, today
thoughts on
I
that?
guess right, the slides that I have here are totally on the PL, like how to get our
Yeah.
custom IP into the PL,
Yeah.
and then how to get that programmable logic, like the bit stream for that loaded, or bin or bit
Hmm.
to load it up. You know, there's like 4 or 5 different ways to do this, and what I would really like is for everybody for it to be easy for remote people to use. And our fallback has always been to just kind of like make an SD card for somebody,
Yeah.
you know, which is fine, but like um that might mean like a 2-day delay. Worst case is going to be like a week if we're gone, but like, you know, there's 2 people here that know how to do that, and a third is getting trained. Um, so obviously it'd be nice for the Linux build itself to not have the bootloader handle the bit stream. So if you have changes, which I anticipate, we're going to have lots of changes and additions of custom IP into this reference design, that you should be able to take your bin file, put it in the firmware directory, or whatever directory for whatever method, whether it's NFS or NBD or this or that, and then all you have to do is maybe reset the system and it automatically load it. So that's kind of the goal. And looking around, because I constantly kind of look around and see if anybody else is doing this, and we're really kind of in a unique category. Um, and just how unique that is, Dr. Jonathan Black from Virginia Tech wanted me to stop everything and write it all down so that he could take it and publish it as an IEEE paper because he's an educator and is now on sabbatical in the UK and working on exactly this sort of problem. And he says that nobody really attempts to do this at the level that we're doing. So that's good and bad news. It shows that this is an extremely difficult problem. So the whole thing about like, okay, now that we have a reference design that can go to a bit stream, yay. How do you then, as a remote user, modify this and then get it working with the build of Linux that's on the processor side? And one of those ways is to have Linux load the bit stream. And one of those ways seems to be with a device tree overlay. And so now I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So the device tree handles the FPGA as well as lots and lots of other things. And I can see the device tree, and we generated the device tree successfully with the Kuiper build from Analog Devices. And then they're like, oh, just use a device tree overlay. And then they give an example of what a device tree overlay file looks like. And so I wrote that and I just plunked it down into the firmware directory. And guess what? It didn't work. Because I'm thinking you probably have to compile it and you have to attach this overlay in the right place into the device tree. I'm like, it's never really as simple as the high level thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So as soon as we do that, I think then all you have to do is to your bit stream or bin file. It needs to be a bin file. It can't be a bit file. It doesn't need the header. The header from the bit file confuses things. But Linux just wants the raw, like just the data, just the facts, ma'am. And then it will know where to put it. Okay, so if we can get that done and then write it down to make it very clear, then anybody that's working on PL can just say, hey, here you go, here's my bin file, and it will work with whatever is on with the Kuiper build that's on the SD card without anything else. So that's kind of the current challenge on that. It seems like it's like at the high level, it makes sense. You're like, okay, you're telling the device tree not just where the FPGA region is, but you're saying, here is this file that I would like for you to use. And it should just be very cooperative. Like it should want to help us. But I'm not sure, there's something missing. We're not quite doing all that we need to do.
Okay.
So I did put it all into Slack, but it probably is back a ways. And that's as far as I got with the device tree overlay. I watched 4 videos about device tree overlays that had nothing to do with any like they worked. So I'm now educated on device tree overlays in a way I'd never thought I would be, but they're for different problems and they don't like nothing that none of the advice seemed to work. And I wrote to Analog Devices and I've gotten nothing back. All of all of Analog Devices technical support and customer support is supposed to be through the Engineer Zone forum, which Swato has used to try to talk about NFS and then Paul chimed in on that thread. And just like over at Xilinx, this is the exact same situation at Xilinx. Xilinx wants you to use their forums.
Yes.
And wow, what a jungle that is. You can find treasures and trash, and then you're reading along and you're like, oh, this is exactly it, and you realize it's from 2016 and no longer works. So that's kind of like the usual situation for most of these companies is that's where they've offloaded the technical support to essentially the community. So as soon as we can figure this out, then we need to write it down and have it on at least on our repo and feed it back to, hopefully it will be findable enough. So that's kind of if there is a better way forward other than like a device tree overlay and letting Linux do the thing, and then you just put your new bin file in the firmware directory that's accessible to you. That's kind of the nice thing is that it doesn't require me to pull the SD card, go and rebuild everything and then put it back in, because that would just slow people down. The having people be able to drop it off in a directory that they have access to, that's much better. To get me out of the loop as much as possible should be the goal. So that's the status here. Any other better way forward though, I am willing to dive right in and try.
Okay, sure. So got you. So where I left, I was working on a project that Thomas has created, um, using one of again the using one of the sample designs from ADI, where he just took a small sample um, of HDL, which includes JESD, and he simplified it. And what we were trying to do is get the PS to interact with PL and get the data out of the air. Um, so I still think there may be value in that, or what I will do is maybe because Thomas has modified a lot of things, and you have also reached to a particular stage where it works. I will also take one of the sample designs from ADI, which includes JESD. Uh, I have my things ready from the PS side, so that's solid for me. Maybe then I will try to connect PS and PL and let things fly in the air via IIO. So let's see, moving in similar direction, in same direction, but in a slightly different path. So yeah, that's what my aim is. Apart from that, yeah, I went through slacks and all the commits. Um, went through the doc for where the latest doc where you have latest doc about orbital maneuverability and propellant estimation. You have uploaded one of the docs, so I went through that for Leo path. So that's the parallel path that I want to continue. And yeah, that's the plan for next week. Only blocker is for this is a question to Paul, for how long this ChocoCat will be down.
Not long in the initial phase, just an hour or two.
Yeah.
And then later on, when I actually am able to do, yeah, actually that may be it. If there's a second phase, it would take more like half a day. If it takes longer than that, I'll back out and put it back where it was, because it shouldn't be that complicated.
A second phase for the move for what?
For disk space reorg.
Oh, okay. So the first phase of this is just an hour, and then that might be it.
It might be, yeah. That depends on whether I can do the data move while the system is up or not.
So when are you planning to do with the first phase?
I'm waiting until I get confirmation from Salvatore that he's not currently using the system. I'm sure that's true because it's been several days with no response. I may eventually just pull the plug. If you have a preference, I can cooperate and do whenever is convenient for you.
No, yeah,
Probably.
my only thing is as soon as possible. If it's possible, just get away with it, do it, so that we have a
Okay.
stable thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I'll speak for Salvatore. I don't think he would want you to wait on his behalf.
All right, I'll do it today then.
Sure. Okay. And is there any risk of data loss during second phase?
I sure hope not. There's always a risk, but I don't know of any.
Yeah. But I mean, nothing you know of that you will be wiping any data or something, nothing of that sort.
We'll be moving data, which
Moving,
means
okay.
copying it and then erasing the original. That's a little bit risky, but it ought to work. It's supposed to work.
Just a brief. What's the second phase plan? What you are going in this phase? I know you posted on Slack what you are trying to do. What in second phase?
What I posted describes both phases. Now, the first phase is just to get the big and the tools directories mounted on the system, and then the second phase is to move the data from the one to the other. And I can do some moving, and I'll ask individual users to do their own, because that way they'll know where it ended up. Or I can help with that. I can move stuff for people, but it's better if everybody knows what's going on and has their fingers on it.
Yeah, got you. So yeah, second phase is low risk. That's what I wanted to know. Yeah, that's fine.
Should be.
Yeah. Thank you. That's super helpful. Cool. All right. Any last comments, requests, or problems, blockers, resources needed before we close for the day?
No, not from me. No.
Okay, thanks everybody. What I'll try to do from here over the next couple of days is get the encoder working and hooked up and force fed with some data following your suggestions. I probably will need some help and looking forward very much to the PS and the PL side working together with Anshul's work. So I'll be here. We're looking forward to Hamcation. So we'll be traveling on February 9th, but that's still days and days in the future. So plenty of time for all sorts of wonderful progress. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
One
Thank you.
thing, one last
You
thing
bet.
before we
Oh,
go.
sure. Yes.
Oh, as I browse through the Slack, there is just bits of information here and there. Till the point you have reached, any comprehensive document for the steps?
Any complaints about what?
Comprehensive documents for the
Oh,
steps that I need
comprehensive
to follow.
documents for the steps.
Yeah, that you follow to reach this stage.
Yeah, I think Sawato already asked for that, and that was requested last week as well. So I did take I have started on putting it all in one place on like what I did.
Mhm.
So yes, and I'm gonna write it down again so it'll happen. And this is like just being able to recreate the custom IP part. Is that the main?
I mean, ADI, how you integrated ADI with our custom DVBS
Yes,
and
got
it
it.
working.
Yeah, fortunately, there is actually some good. There's a pretty good document from ADI that I linked,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it assumes that you know an awful lot. So those sorts of things that and also if you have created raw RTL files, completely very simple RTL files, that's kind of what they're assuming. If you have a fully functional, complex sort of module with anything extra that you're doing, like the wrapper trick or the port type trick, then
Yeah.
well, it doesn't just work. I think that you'll see that this is just a rookie mistake on my part, and that if I with a little bit more experience, I would have been able to just integrate it right off the bat, because it's not like a super ridiculous custom IP that does all sorts of weird stuff. This is very well written code from Sawato. So, but yes, I'll fill in and show that he's actually he has a TECL file that actually does at least part of the job that the TECL file from ADI's template was doing. So including both of them was kind of part of the problem. So yes, I will get some sort of, here's the workflow, because that's what we want. We want people to show up and to be able to put their custom IP into the reference design without anybody else having to futz with it or assist. Like, as long as you're willing to read the document and you understand the basics of FPGA design, you should be able to participate and put your stuff into the really nice reference design that Analog Devices provides. So yeah, a guide or documentation is definitely a high priority. And I think that the time where it will be complete is probably when this encoder works. And I can then say, okay, so now you're working with a board that uses JESD and DMA. How do you take advantage of that? And that's the kind of the last puzzle piece. Well, maybe not the very last one, because you need to have a source. And we think we can provide that through IIO API. So cross all fingers and and then everything will flow through this really nice design, and then show up on the air, and then people will be able to see that. So the answer is I guess that was a very long answer to your short and excellent question, and the answer is absolutely yes. It's going to be, there will definitely be comprehensive documentation on how to take advantage of it.
Speaking of documentation, there's a outstanding pull request on the repo from Salvi to the petalinux.md file. I think Soto would probably be the best person to review that and approve it, assuming it's approvable. And I could look at it too, but I think you'd be the best person.
Yeah, I can have a look. Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Next time, see you on Slack, and hopefully I'll have lots to report there. And I'll see you next week here.